What up, YouTube? Look at this. I'm doing my August comics review actually in August, unlike last month when I did July's in August. So, not a lot of stuff going on this month. We got about a half dozen issues, most of it the Turtles. So that, of course, as usual, is where we'll start. First up, issues 14 and 15 of the Turtles Saturday Morning Adventures series. In the first issue, Mr. Og, or whatever his name is, the little kind of floating munchkin from Dimension whatever that's been fucking with the Turtles over the last couple issues, he's set these challenges for them in order to have them escape his trap. If they can win 2 of the 3 challenges, they'll escape. If they don't, then they're destroyed forever. So I can't remember, they beat the dragon in the first challenge, and then they lost the second challenge where they had to fight all these different versions of themselves from other Turtles verses. And in this last one, Mr. Og basically recruits all of the villains they've ever fought almost to all charge them and engage them at once. So we've got like all the OGs like Krang, Shredder, Bebop, Rocksteady, Baxter Stockman. There's a Triceraton in there. I think Slash or maybe Razor is in there. Who else? Tiger Claw. All sorts. Like, so many villains. But the problem is, the villains end up kind of turning on each other, because you know how bad guys are, right? Like, they get in each other's way, and there's like, well, fuck you, and then they start fighting. So the Turtles are kind of like, this is a joke, right? But Mr. Og still holds all the power. He's the little tiny munchkin wizard guy. So Donnie, after listening to some of Mr. Og's description of these villains that are attacking them, he says, like, I have villains from your past, present, and future all here to attack you today. So Donnie eventually cues in on this with some help from Mikey, saying, oh, you've got villains from our future? Well, that means that we won. That means, how can we have villains from the future if we don't win this battle right now, right? So Mr. Og's like, oh, semantics, curse you, right? So then it's funny, they have one panel where there's a production meeting of, I guess, the writers for the Turtles comics, and Mr. Og pops in on them and is like, they're bringing me down with semantics. And they're like, sorry, we can't destroy the Turtles anyways. They're too popular, so you're going to have to take the loss on this, Mr. Og. And he's like, ah! So then, as the issue kind of closes off that first issue, one of the villains he brought was someone called the Rat Queen, who I'm not familiar with. Oh, of course, Rat King was one of the villains. But Rat Queen is not a human who loves rats. She's actually a mutated rat. And she doesn't know the Turtles. They don't know her. And she's like, I don't want any part of this. So Mr. Og's like, well, fuck you then. And he zaps her away to somewhere. And as the last panel of the issue kind of closes everything off, we see the Rat Queen in this weird landscape where she starts talking about having a plan to take down the Turtles and using a group called the Pantheon to do so. So, of course, in issue 15, after this one, we're introduced to the Pantheon. So, basically, it's a group of evildoers led by Hob. There is Draco, who's like this dragon guy. Akka, who's like an owl. Rat Queen. And then a couple other ones. Golgotha, something like that. This weird freak. And so they all talk about bringing down the Turtles. And they're like, well, should we just, if we start messing around on Earth, like, if we just stay out of their way, will they even bother us? And Hobbs like, yes, they're do-gooders. If we cause trouble, they will come after us. And they're just 4 mutant turtles with weapons, like hand weapons. They don't even have guns or anything, but somehow they kick everybody's ass, right? So they come up with this plan where they say, bring in the troubadours. And it's this little group of 3 little tiny weird creatures that have force fields and stuff. And so Hob sicks the troubadours on the Turtles one night when they're on a rooftop catching some bad guys. And they start fighting these troubadour people. And before the fight is over, Hob and his Man-Moth, that's one of the other Pantheon members, they all show up and like defeat the troubadours and save the turtles kind of thing. Saying like, oh yeah, we're just here to help out, and because we kind of need your help with something, right? So then Hobbs like, will you come with us? So they go, but basically Hobb takes them to his hideout and kind of subdues the turtles and puts them in these tanks where I think it's Golgotha is the one who uses some sort of mind deceiving technology to almost brainwash them, and ultimately they want to turn them into members of the Pantheon and brainwash them. But of all the turtles, Michelangelo is the one that fights back in this kind of brainwashing dreamlike reality and kind of ruins the experience for the Pantheon. And so they bring him out of his pod and out of his slumber or whatever they're doing when they're in this kind of state, and all you see is the whole Pantheon kind of like all around, and Michelangelo's like lying down, and he's like, since you proved resistant to our technology, we're gonna have to deal with you the old-fashioned way. So obviously, as the issue closes off, the Pantheon are about to kick Michelangelo's ass, but I have a feeling she ain't gonna happen. Next up, issue 5, and I think this is the final one in this series, at least for now. Issue 5 of The Untold Destiny of the Foot Clan. In this one, Yoshi Chen is at his island fortress with his assistant. I can't remember her name. And he's aware that Karai and her mutant freaks have the location of his island fortress and may be on their way. So they're like, should we retreat? Should we do whatever? He's like, no, I'll let them come, whatever. So it then flips over to Karai, who has just imbued the weapons for Casey Jones, Natsu, Clyde, with some sort of power, magical power that will allow them to defeat the Dogstar soldiers and their armor a lot easier. So they use Bebop and Rocksteady as a distraction. They drop from a plane onto the island and start causing all sorts of havoc, while Karai and the rest of them sneak in a boat into the island. Once there, they start engaging the Dogstar clan soldiers, and these weapons are working great. They're just kicking ass all over the place. And as all that fighting is going on, Karai eventually makes it up to Yoshi Chen's kind of headquarters and engages him and wounds him pretty good. And after that, he kind of escapes, though. So Karai tries to deal with his aide. Or no, he doesn't escape quite yet. But he looks like he's mortally injured the way she kind of runs him through. And then she starts talking to his aide, I think to try and get some info out of her or something. But she suddenly is like, bleh, and then Yoshi Chen's like, well, she had a self-destruct that I implanted in her chip, so boom, right? You're not getting anything out of her. So then Yoshi Chen, after that, he fucks off and escapes. So Karai exits and meets up with all of her charges and is like, well, he escaped, but we did a good job today. We dealt a heavy blow. They now know that we're not to be fucked with, and even though Yoshi Chen survived, hopefully he's learned a bit of a lesson. I have a feeling he hasn't. And then at the end, there's kind of two epilogues. One with Karai just meditating and talking to her old master that died, saving her earlier in the series. Excuse me. And then there's one at the end too where I think Yoshi Chen is talking about something. I can't remember exactly what it was. Oh yeah, there's a Night Watcher series coming up too. Oh yeah, he's in some sort of lab with a doctor that's kind of given him new armor and has made him even more powerful. So he thinks like the turtles not the turtles, Karai and her minions are gonna not fare so well in their next meetup sort of thing. So now, last up for the turtles, we finished the regular ongoing series, ended a while back with the big thick issue number 150, where all that storyline with Armagon and whatever wrapped up. So they have finally come out with the next incarnation of the turtles. Issue number 1 is here, and it was pretty cool. It features Raphael only, and he's actually in prison, and he's talking about how he, him and his brothers had a falling out. They all went their separate ways. Raph ended up doing something. They don't say what he did, but he got arrested. He got put in prison. So now he's in this prison, and all the inmates are all human, and they're all after Raph. But he's a kick-ass ninja, so, you know, he just beats their asses all the time. And so he is... The warden has promised to get him out of there eventually, so long as he helps the warden out in controlling a lot of the inmates. So we see Raph foil an escape attempt. Some guys that had dug a tunnel over a series of time. He thwarts a breakout attempt by them one night, and in the prison yard. Oh, excuse me. In the prison yard the next day, we see the warden behind a fence, and Raphael's sitting on a bench, and they're talking, and the warden's like, "Remember our deal? I own you. Your ass is mine. So you continue to do what I need, and, you know, it's all going to be good." And so he said, "We got 3 new guys, real bad dudes coming in today, and I want you to keep an eye on them." So as Raph is in the process of that one night, he finds a guard killed. And then he makes his way to the rooftops, and lo and behold, he gets attacked by a bunch of Foot Clan ninjas. So he thinks they're there after him, simply. But that's not the case. He engages them, he fights them off. After the battle is over, he realizes the truth of why they were there as he goes to the warden's office, and the warden has been murdered, and it's been set up to look like it was Raphael that did it. So right after this happens, of course, all the guards descend on the warden's office. They find Raph there. They're like, "Hands in the air, motherfucker. We know what you did." But then he eventually escapes and drops through, I think, probably the same escape tunnel those other guys had dug that he thwarted earlier in the issue. And he kind of escapes through the sewers, and he says, "You know what? I haven't seen my bros in a long time, but it's about time for a reunion." And that's kind of how it ends. So I don't know if this is going to be like... it'll be cool if each of the first maybe 4 issues feature each different turtle, and whatever circumstances they find themselves in at the same time that Raph has experienced this prison issue. And it would be nice the first 4 issues are each one, and then they all kind of come together after that. I think that would be pretty neat. So I'm assuming it's going to be something like that. We're going to find out what the other guys are doing, and what kind of story is going to come about when they're all reunited. But so far I like it. It's very different. It's very dark, and kind of, you know, ooh, Raph is in prison. You know, it's not the fun-loving Turtles we grew up watching in the late 80s now, is it? It's a little serious, but you know what? I like serious in certain situations. Not many, but some. Last up is G.I. Joe, because we have no Transformers this month, unfortunately. So none of the main issues on G.I. Joe, just a couple of the sub-series right now. First up, issue 2 of Scarlet. As this one kicks off, we see Scarlet tied to a chair in some sort of dojo-looking room, and she's going through some objectives in her mind, and she's like, "Okay, mission 1, infiltrate Arashikage's stronghold in Japan. Mission 2, find and rescue Jinx. Mission 3, obtain some sort of secret Arashikage weapon. Mission 4, objective 4, stay the fuck alive and escape," sort of thing, right? So as she's in this chair, she kind of escapes using a razor to cut herself in the shackles she's in, and as people start to attack her, she fights back, and then eventually Storm Shadow calls a halt to it, or somebody calls a halt to it, and it's like, okay, well done, you know. So we find that this is almost kind of like a test for her. She's been taken captive, but she's obviously is trying to become one of them to rescue Jinx, so I think they're testing her, sort of thing. So eventually they sit down, Storm Shadow and the Hardmaster, and start talking about why she's there, what she wants, and how she can become a full-fledged member of the Arashikage. And while this is all going on, They talk about Jinx as well, and we see some flashbacks relating to the current situation of how her and Jinx grew up together and were the best of friends. And so the Hardmaster eventually says, you know what, you have impressed us with your fighting skills, but mainly what we value is integrity and loyalty and being part of this family sort of thing. So Scarlet's like, well, is there something I can do perhaps to show that to you? And they say, yes, there is. You can obtain this mysterious Arashikage weapon that Scarlet was waxing on at the very start. So she is geared up and eventually gets taken to some sort of facility where she infiltrates it and is looking for this weapon. And we just see her getting ready for this mission, and then first infiltrating this facility, and eventually she drops down this big shaft and gets discovered. So we just see like all these reports of an intruder, and that they're mobilizing all their forces to kind of stop her as she is invading this facility and trying to find this weapon. Can't wait for number 3. And these series, these sub-series, like the Cobra Commander, Destro, Scarlet, Duke, they all seem to be 5 issues long. They're just these short little kind of origin storyline sort of thing, right? So we still got a few issues of Scarlet left, so that's good fun. Last up, issue 2 of Destro. In this one, Destro is in Darklonia, kind of recovering from the terror attack that the evil twin brothers launched, even though they're denying they did it. So Destro's pissed off at them. They're pissed off at him. Destro claims he has the best firepower. The evil twin brothers and their extensive enterprises company claim they have the most manpower. So they're each trying to take each other down. So they start launching assaults on each other. Extensive Enterprises takes out one of Destro's battle android trooper facilities in, I think, South Carolina. Meanwhile, Destro fires back at them at one of their facilities. So eventually a kind of unofficial truce is called, and Destro and the evil twin brothers meet at this junkyard looking place, and they talk about like joining forces. No, not gonna happen. And Destro's like, well, I'll be taking all your fucking men after I destroy you and kill you both. And meanwhile, the twins are like, well, we'll be equipping all our fucking people with all your tech when we kill you. And then they shake on it and they're like, to the death. So then they fuck off, and after that deal is made, we see Destro trekking to the Scottish Highlands in the snow, where he had visited, I think, it must have been the first issue, unless it was part of the main ongoing storyline. He had been there, but he has this secret chamber with statues of past clan Destro people, and he believes himself totally off the grid, totally safe at this place. But as he enters this facility to ruminate on the situation, we see a person named Chameleon kind of unfold from the snow. He was tracking Destro all along, and he's got a sniper rifle, and he's like, no problem, Destro is about to be done. So that's kind of where it ends off. We just see this Chameleon guy emerge, and it's obvious that he's going to go for a kill shot on Destro. But I have a feeling Destro might survive this attack. I mean, he's got a metal fucking head, for God's sake. So can't wait for number 3 on that one, just like with Scarlet. So that is all. Just a half dozen issues this month. Just the Turtles, just G.I. Joe. I say just, 2 of the best franchises ever in the history of the universe. But yeah, just missing a little bit of Transformers action. That would have been nice, but I'm sure I'm going to get my wish come September when I go pick up my badge, and hopefully get me some more Transformers as well. So until next month, stay frosty. Meow.